Hello and welcome back to That Grassroots Ramble. It's hot topic time and this one's got you really fired up. It's the new FA guidelines for heading in youth football. As always, we ran a poll on social media and you didn't disappoint, so stick around as we'll be sharing the results from that a little bit later in the show.
The updated guidance, which was introduced by the Football Association on the 24th of February, offers grassroots clubs, coaches and parents some more expertise and guidelines around how to head the football in training sessions alone. It doesn't make any changes to the rules of the game or affect match play. And I'm really pleased that Chloe has come back to help us dissect this topic because, Jason, the headlines caused a bit of a storm, didn't they?
They have done. I mean, you're right in pointing out that it's a guideline, not a rule change. But I just don't think mainstream media have helped us with this one at all. You take the BBC's article, for example. So, yes, the article itself talks about FA guidelines, children to no longer head footballs during training. Not true. It's not a blanket ban on children heading the football. And then when you actually share the post to social media, the headline changes to children to no longer head footballs in training. Which is, and you know what people are like on social media. They'll see the headline and you'll get a lot of negative comments, which is what we've seen on some of our posts. And then the link from another article within the BBC to this same article says children banned from heading footballs.
Chloe, you work with the Football Association at the local county authority. You're a coach yourself. Are these headlines just really misleading?
Yeah, I wasn't in the office when the guidelines came out and I saw the line children banned from heading footballs and went, huh? I've not heard that. But personally, as a coach as well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily impacted me. So the media causing the stir that it didn't necessarily reflect what happened on the football pitches.
Certainly not. And if we look at, from the FA's perspective, and this is some of the guidance they're giving, and like we've mentioned, they're not saying no heading at all, except for the 12-year-olds and under. And then it's in training, isn't it? It's not in match situations. And if we just flick this on one more, so you can actually see, under 12 level, heading remains low priority. 1 session a month and a maximum of 5 headers. Same under 13s, and then obviously it increases as you go up through the age groups.
They're really detailed guidelines, aren't they? So it's almost like the headlines and perhaps some of the communications has caused a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, but there's plenty of research and plenty of expertise that's led to this decision.
Yeah, they've not come from nowhere. I think Scottish FA got the sort of articles out beforehand, and it wasn't an unexpected thing. But also you look at the ages that heading should not be introduced in training sessions at this age. How many of them are going to be hitting the ball up in the air during games anyway? They're playing 5 and 7-a-side football at that age group. The pitches aren't built for long ball football. It's not going to happen. So really, to me, they make sense.
Yeah, and you manage it on the 13 side, don't you?
Yes.
You said to us off air earlier, we just don't see it much, do we?
I think if I tried to run a heading session, I'd be wildly unpopular, and I wouldn't have them coming back. I've always said that when they're heading the ball, happy to show them which part of the head they should be using because it should be safe for them if they are going to head it. But it's not something I'm not going to line them up and throw balls at their throw balls at their heads. Yeah. That's not going to happen.
Okay, then. So without further ado, shall we reveal the results of the poll? So we asked, do you agree with the FA's new guidelines that children under the age of 12 should no longer head footballs in training? And the result was as follows.
So, those that did agree with that statement, 41%, and those that didn't agree with it said no, 59%. Quite close again.
It is quite close.
I was surprised with the amount of negative comments we had, just how close it was. If you look at sort of some of the things people were saying, I've never heard the term snowflake so much, which I can't stand. And if we look at why this was introduced, we mentioned so the initiative was prompted by Glasgow University field study funded by the FA and the PFA, which showed former footballers are 3.5 times more likely to die from brain disease. Now, I think one of the problems has been there was absolutely no evidence in the field study to suggest that heading the ball was the cause to the link with incidents of degenerative neurocognitive disease. And to mitigate any potential risks, the updated heading guidance has been produced. I don't think, obviously they've done this study and people are jumping on that saying, well, there's no evidence. but there's still head trauma in there, isn't there? And go on, sorry.
It's quite an emotive topic, isn't it? And when you understand that there's research and lots of money has been ploughed into having a really good and thorough understanding. So on the one side, it's been, I think, probably construed by the people that have got in contact with us as, oh, well, you know, I agree with it, there's research behind it. But from the other side, there's the flip coin of, well, actually, the research has been done for quite a small minority of people, and is it enough to justify, again, what's been considered a wholesale change, although really it's just some guidelines.
And I think there's different developments in the game that I think some people argue about as well. So, for example, the types of footballs we use now, they're not the same. They're not the same weights. They're not. So I think
that was one of the main comments, actually.
Yeah, I think that's why some people do think. But also, again, it's that sort of the beautiful game, we can't damage it kind of attitude to football that a lot of people have. Everyone's so emotional about football that the idea of change is naturally quite scary, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the players that they studied, there was 7,000, just over 7,500 of them, and they were born between 1900 and 1976. So yes, they would have been using the heavier footballs. And we've seen some sort of, you know, some of the arguments against it, you know, saying if under 12s don't head the ball in training, won't it be dangerous for them to attempt it in matches if they don't know the proper technique?
It's a good point. It's a fair point.
Yeah, but there's an element as well of if I explain, if you can explain, but a game of chance of I've been hit in the face too many times to argue otherwise. I used to have glasses on as well. That was an additional risk. Wouldn't be allowed nowadays. But it's one of those that the kids will work out for themselves, and you can always teach different ways. There's different ways of doing things. Soft footballs, for example, you can teach the technique of headering. Again, chances are it won't go that way, but with that part of your head with a softball, and then the kids aren't having to throw their head.
Yeah, they're not guessing, are they?
No.
When it comes to match situations.
I think what's so unfortunate with those kind of headlines is it's blurred the boundaries of the conversation, almost to a certain degree, the poll, because one of the things that really struck me was actually the FA stated that in an average youth game, there's only 2 headers per game anyway. So really and truly, it's perhaps not as big an issue as we thought. And I think it's quite interesting to point towards Mark Bullingham, who's the FA's chief. Our research has shown that heading is rare in youth football matches. So this guidance is a responsible development to our grassroots coaching without impacting the enjoyment that children of all ages take from playing the game. And I think there's 2 really important things for that. For me, is about being responsible about children's development and enjoyment, because that is such a big thing, isn't it now? We're all kind of driven towards competition, and if these guidelines help more young players enjoy the game, then surely that's a good thing.
Exactly, and even the weather plays a part in that. On a 3G pitch, if it's wet and then you're going to head the ball, the crumb, my lot would turn around and go, my hair. Like, it's just what they do, but even me as an adult player would do exactly the same. I'm going, pulling bits of 3G out of my head. Like, it's just it's not the most fun element of football. People want to play football to be running around with their friends. Like, that's to me what football is, and then you're standing them still heading a ball isn't necessarily.
I think we had a lot of negative comments. It was difficult to pick out kind of some of the more valid ones other than just, you know, I'm defending my sport. And one of them was referencing boxing, saying, well, look, it's still allowed in those age groups to do, you know, to be hit in the face, so why change football? With the counter argument kind of being, well, boxing is known to cause, you know, chronic traumatic brain injuries. No one's debating that. So I did a bit of research around that, and actually there was a study by science at the Imperial College of London, and they studied the forces generated by a ball to the head with a modern football compared to that of a boxer's punch. And the forces are actually similar. So, you know, in that regard, a modern professional footballer is taking, you know, especially a centre-back, they're getting hit in the head with a ball, you know, all week. How's that any different to a boxer sparring, albeit with headgear on? You've got to say that there's an argument there, isn't there, to say that there's something in what the FA are doing here. Yeah,
and I think we wouldn't put a child in a boxing ring without the protective headwear. No. Are we going to, you know, should we then give kids the protective headwear? Or do we control the element of it and limit the sort of amount of time they're spending doing that, which, as you say, isn't that often anyway during matches?
So Chloe, let me be the devil's advocate here and share a few of the comments. So we had comments like, we'll be scrapping football next, the kits will be made out of cotton wool. Quite like that one. We won't be allowed to kick the football soon because of ankle problems later in life. And they're extreme arguments which make it sound like there are constant rule changes and adaptations and stuff like that to reduce the physicality of the game. But is that really the case?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm a fan for the cotton wool kit. If it stops my knee and my ankle going, then yeah. But it doesn't sort of seem to match up to me. But I think that fundamentally, football is running with a ball and trying to put it in a goal. When we ask kids, what's the point of football? To score goals. That's what they say. You can do that without having to be, risking later life injury or whatever, and still enjoy the game. It's whether you're playing or spectating. There's differences in that, and that can impact on people's opinions.
There's a huge difference, isn't there, between a brain injury, long term, and my ankle hurts when it gets a bit stiff, when it gets cold, So yeah, it's a bit of a strange argument, and we have to remember that these kids aren't. They can't make this decision at their age. They've got, there's a duty of care to those children to make sure that we give them the best chance. And then when they're adults, they can make that decision for themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Something about being responsible and, again, catering for the wider grassroots community. And I think even as we've found out, making this show, that grassroots community is really diverse. And sometimes it's not all about winning and it's not all about being super competitive. It's about having some fun.
Okay, good stuff. Thanks, Chloe. For me, there's enough of a link with any type of head trauma and brain injury to warrant introducing these guidelines. As a precaution, I think, until we've got more research in place. And I think we have to remember that there's no selfish interest by the FA here. They're simply acting in the best interest of young players with the information they have currently.
And it probably was our hottest topic to date. So do let us know what you think. Share your opinions, tweet us, leave them on our Facebook page or drop a comment in the section below. That's all from us for this episode. Make sure you join us next time for another ramble.
If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a ramble.